what's going on YouTube? It is Dom, aka KT2, and I'm coming back at you guys yet again with another banger today, guys. I've got the most hidden, mysterious MOS you've ever seen in your life today, guys. This is a once in a, let me say it, hold on. I don't think you heard me. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? How many times? You know, I'm not even gonna ruin it today for you guys. I'm not gonna put the pressure on you guys tonight on this episode of Thursday Thunder. I'm gonna let Kevin, my boy Kevin, we met in OCS. I'm gonna let him introduce himself. So without further ado, we're gonna jump straight into this interview today. Kevin, thank you for coming on this show tonight.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Glad to be here with you all. Glad to be here with you, Dom. Glad to be here to share the little knowledge that I have about, if you haven't studied aviation, about that field in the Army, and hopefully answer some questions for you all.
Whew, yes. So, you know, to jump straight into it, exactly, what is your rank?
So I'm currently a first lieutenant.
You're a first lieutenant, okay. And just so everybody can hear it one more time, you are an aviation officer, correct?
Correct, aviation officer.
In the Army.
In the Army.
So everybody knows there are actually aviators in the Army. We don't just shoot people, we fly stuff too. What is the alphanumeric number for your MOS?
So for aviation officers, we are 15 alphas.
Okay, you're a 15 alpha. So how long have you been an aviation officer?
So commissioned out of OCS 2017, and since that point, I've been an aviation officer. But actually, at a unit, I've only been at a unit since probably end of 2018 is when I graduated flight school.
Ooh. Okay, and actually, a great question is, I know a lot of people want to know, how do you pick your airframe? Like, how does that even go? Do you just pick, like, hey, I'm trying to fly a fighter jet, let me pick it? So can you break that down for us, please?
Sure thing. So when I was going through flight school, the way that we chose our aircraft, and I'm pretty sure it's the same still to this day, is it's based off of your class OML. So throughout flight school, you have a couple of stages in the program. You'll have your BOLIC Part A, and then after that, you'll go into your SEER, and then you'll go into your actual, what they call your initial entry rotary course. So that's where you learn on the trainer aircraft how to fly a helicopter. And then from that point, you move on to selection, and all of your scores throughout those previous courses, and then your PT scores and things like that, they accumulate into your class standing, to your OML score. And based off your OML score determines who's going to pick the aircraft first. And for aircraft availability, it's really hit or miss. Sometimes classes will have all airframes available: Apaches, Chinooks, Blackhawks, C-12s, and then sometimes there may be a class that only has Apaches available, or maybe only has Blackhawks available. So it really depends on the needs of the Army and what they have available and what positions they're trying to field. But for example, if all positions were available, the person who had the highest OML score would announce their selection. For us, we went up to a board and pulled off a sticker of the aircraft that we were choosing. I'm sure it changes between classes on how they decide to carry that out, but for us, we went up to a board and pulled off a sticker. And for example, the first person that went up, they ended up choosing Chinooks, and then the next person ended up choosing Chinooks as well. And then after that, the next person chose Apache, and so on until down to the last person, and they had whatever was left on the board.
Okay, so actually interesting. What are the most common? So what's really popular? What's a really popular airframe to pick, and what's, I guess, the least popular airframe that people pick?
That's a good question. So I would say if all aircraft were available, in my personal opinion, and from talking with friends and stuff like that, a lot of people would have tried to go fixed wing. So they would have tried to fly airplanes, which would have been the C-12. But if there were only helicopters available, it's really a mix. Like, some people really love the Apache community and the Apache mindset, and they want to shoot things and blow things up. Some people really love the Black Hawk or the Chinook community mindset where they transport people, transport cargo, that lift community kind of mindset, working as a crew with the other pilot and the crew chiefs. So it's really hit and miss. Like everybody has their own preference, but I would say fixed wing is like one of the rare things that people get.
Okay. But it is a possibility.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. Okay. And this is the last question actually I have on airplanes. So not airplanes, but on just on airframes in general, because I know it's going to be pretty common. Is that let's say I'm young Lieutenant Dom, and I pick Apaches, right? Let's say I finish flight school and I get to my unit, I get to Kentucky and I get to my unit and I'm like, you know what? I'm not feeling this anymore. I want to fly an airplane. I came here to fly airplanes. Let me fly an airplane. Is there some way I can switch when I'm at my unit?
So there are various ways you can end up switching aircraft throughout your career. Initially, like once you get to your first unit, it's not going to be a door that's open immediately. You have to get some time, you have to get some experience, and then end up putting a packet in. But I know specifically for fixed wing, if you're a helicopter pilot, you can switch over to the fixed wing community, and that's talking with HRC, putting in a packet, and getting some letters of recommendation. That is a possibility. I also have heard of people, they go through, they end up getting selected for Special Operations Aviation Regiment and end up getting an aircraft transition course to fly different aircraft in that community as well. But there's possibilities and different avenues on how to change your aircraft if you want to change it later on down the road.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, thank you. Time to get back to the regularly scheduled interview. So next question is, why did you pick? You got all these amazing branches in the Army. You have quartermaster, and you have quartermaster. So why did you pick aviation?
Why did I pick aviation? So when I was looking at everything that was available and kind of considering all of my opportunities, like you said, quartermaster was okay, but aviation kind of stuck out to me a little bit more. And what really caught my attention was just the opportunity to do something unique and something different. And aviation provides a lot of opportunities to do that, not only job wise, but travel wise as well. And learning a new skill set that maybe a lot of people don't get when they join the Army or in any other career field in general.
True.
And then I also didn't want to do a whole lot of walking in my career, a whole lot of walking and running. So I said if I could be in the air flying, that would kind of eliminate that. So that helped out a little bit too.
That makes sense. So let's bring this back a little bit. Let's say right now you're new to your unit. You just get back to your unit. No, just get back. You just get to your unit. Can you maybe run us through what a day-to-day life is like as a brand new second lieutenant just got to, well, maybe you're a first lieutenant when you get to your unit, but you're a brand new first lieutenant, you just get to your unit. I mean, are you PTing in the morning, in the afternoon? Do you got meetings, command and staff training? Can you run us through, what it's kind of like for you?
Sure. So again, with any duty station in any job, it'll vary from duty station to duty station, and with command influence as well. Different commanders prefer make different things happen, but in general, across the aviation enterprise as a whole, for lieutenants, when they first get to their unit, I'll talk about flying aspect first, and then I'll talk about kind of like other LT duties. So for flying, when you first get to your unit, you're fresh out of flight school. You can either, if you end up in a flight company, then you're kind of one of the lucky ones, because some LTs end up going to staff for a while and kind of sitting in a staff position.
Wow.
But for LTs that end up in a flight company, they'll go through what's called progression, aircraft progression, or RL progression, readiness level progression. So it's kind of when you get to the unit, it's the unit checking you out, kind of training you up for the mission sets that they do and kind of the flights that they do in their area. And then just making sure that you're, I guess, competent enough to fly with other pilot in commands and not just instructor pilots. And so you'll go through that, and depending on a lot of different factors, availability of aircraft, what's going on, what else is going on in the unit. That'll determine how long it'll take for you to get through that progression. And then also in the flight company for LT duty stuff. So a lot of people, when they hear aviation officers, they think that we fly all the time, we fly all the time, we fly all the time.
Yeah, hell yeah.
We do fly, and we're required to maintain tactical and technical proficiency in our aircraft. But the people who fly the most in aviation are going to be your warrant officers. Those are the people that are those experts in tactical and technical aspects, and they do the majority of the flying. But for LTs, we do a lot of the managing in terms of like platoon managing, or if you're an XO, managing stuff at the company level, but making sure soldiers are taken care of, doing administrative tasks, property, for example, making sure that all your property is good, your aircraft that you're signed for, making sure that your platoon, your crew chiefs, and your mechanics are taking care of the aircraft. And then, in addition to that, any other typical LT duties that you can think of for any other branch, you pretty much have the same thing for an aviation LT as well.
Okay, that's new. I was under the impression that all you guys did was get up in the morning, you put your nice aviator sunglasses on, got your coffee, and then just walk to your airplanes or Apaches or helicopters, picked us up, and then threw us out the plane. All us airborne guys. That's what I thought. But you guys actually have staff time and platoons, and wow, okay. Wow, this is new for me. Okay, so if you were to sum up, let's say your general responsibilities, as a new lieutenant, old new first lieutenant, if you could give us like maybe three, maybe four general responsibilities of an aviation officer, what in your mind, what would they be?
So for an aviation officer, commissioned officer, definitely leadership, and that's for any officer in general, but leadership in all aspects and setting the standard. And then in addition to that, because we're aviation, building your flight hours and maintaining flight proficiency, it's hard sometimes as a commissioned officer to do that, but as much as you can, staying in the books, making sure that you're up to speed on aviation things, and making sure that you're getting into the aircraft or going to the simulator as much as you can. And then in addition to that, this kind of goes along with the leadership thing, but just really taking care of your soldiers. Because at the end of the day, like, they're the ones that are going to help you to succeed. And that could be succeeding in just general officership stuff. It could be succeeding in flight stuff, making sure your aircraft are good to fly. It could be succeeding in all different aspects. So definitely just taking care of the soldiers and making sure that they know that they're there for you. That you're there for them.
Gotcha. Okay, that's actually really interesting. That you guys have a lot of general officer responsibilities. I thought you guys were like special operations, like mindset. You don't do any normal Army officer stuff, which is it's really eye opening. It's actually, I'm learning a lot from this. So you did mention that you get to do, how do I say it, out of the norm officer stuff. You probably don't have to walk or ruck as much as I do, right? So what would you say are, the biggest benefits to being an aviation officer, you think?
Some of the biggest benefits that I would say for being in the aviation field as an officer would be obviously flying. Like, I can't, every day that I get to fly, whenever it happens, like, it's one of the coolest things ever. Like, sure, you put in some work, some prep work and stuff like that. Once you're in the aircraft and once you're spooling up and getting ready to take off, like, it's such a cool feeling knowing that I'm getting paid to do this. Like, not many people say that they get paid to go fly Army aircraft and go do some cool stuff and go fly around, just enjoy it and get out of the office for a bit. Other benefits, so aviation, generally speaking, tends to be a pretty relaxed branch, a pretty relaxed field compared to other branches like infantry or armor, for example. Tends to be pretty relaxed, and people tend to be more, not always, but generally I would say a little bit more mature than some of the other people in different branches and stuff. There's a lot of responsibility and a lot required if you're flying $1 million, multi-million-dollar aircraft. People's lives are in your hands when you're flying those aircraft, your lives included, and there's a lot of responsibility and maturity that's expected of you. as an officer, but especially as an officer in aviation because you're flying out there.
Gotcha.
Um, and then other benefits, um, I don't know, it's just cool. It's just
Cool.
really cool to fly.
Just cool. Okay. Okay. So if you could tell us maybe the number one thing you like the most and the number one thing you like the least about your field.
Okay. So the thing that I like the most, um, as I said before, just being able to fly and
Gotcha.
being able to fly affords you a lot of opportunities in the military, like normal duty station locations that most people may not be able to go to, like Honduras or Egypt or Japan or something like that. Those are options that are available for aviation that are kind of out of the norm. And then just the community around aviation in general. It's a pretty tight knit community, pretty well respected community, and not everybody knows everybody, but a lot of people know people, so it helps to just like get to know people, and then through other people get to know them as well. So like I said, with that relaxed community mentality, it's pretty cool. Um, for the thing that I don't like the most about
Mhm.
aviation, on the commission officer side, I would say probably trying to balance all of the responsibilities that LTs normally have, and then trying to balance your flight responsibilities as well.
Mm.
And I definitely knew that I was getting to that when I signed up to go the commission route as opposed to applying and trying to go the warrant route. But I definitely didn't realize how much of a balancing act it would be trying to manage both of those sides of the career field, and
Mm.
it's something that takes time to learn how to do, and I'm still learning each and every day how to do it. But I would say that's probably something that is the thing that I like the least about it. I prefer to do more flying than administrative stuff, but I definitely understand my responsibilities and that sometimes the desk doesn't always come first, but sometimes there are things that need to get done, and flying will come along in the meantime.
Gotcha. Totally understandable. Um, so you don't have to tell us where you're at right now. But is there anything specific to being an aviation officer that can only be done at your current base, or generally everything you can do there, you can do anywhere else?
I would say in general, in terms of aviation, where I'm at right now, most people could do anywhere else at any other aviation unit in the Army, unless it's like a specialized aviation unit or kind of like a aviation unit that's kind of off the beaten path and like away from the flagpole, like some of the places I mentioned earlier. Generally, any aviation unit that's OCONUS, CONUS are kind of the same in terms of mission sets and training and things like that. There's obviously different nuances depending on the climate and environment that you're in, but overall, generally the same.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Um. So have you been deployed? And if you have or have not, do you know if your job changes when deployed?
So I have not been deployed, but have definitely talked to people who have been deployed before in aviation, and they seem to like it a lot more in terms of what they actually do. Because in that deployed environment, it's not necessarily a garrison focus. It's not necessarily focusing on turning training sites green or things like that. But you actually have missions that you're out doing, and like lives are on the line and things like that, and you're out there and people are shooting at you sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. So definitely different environment and a lot more focused on what people actually signed up for instead of being that person at the keyboard typing away, making slides turn different colors and things like that.
So if um if there was anything, so let's say four-star general comes down, right? Comes down, talks to you, says, "Hey, Kevin, Lieutenant Kevin,
Mm-hmm.
um, I want to change something about the aviation branch." Um, what would you tell him if there was anything you could change about the branch, anything at all? What would you want to change about the branch?
Let's see. If I wanted to change anything about the aviation branch, um, I'm sure some of the viewers probably have their own input if they're aviation or whatever. For me personally, I would say I'll probably most likely say more opportunities for commission officers to stay at the company level longer.
Mm.
Because especially for, I know for Black Hawk pilots, for example, they're so overstrength that they have to constantly rotate through lieutenants at the company level just to make sure that everybody gets that company level time. And I definitely understand why they have to do that because they're so overstrength, but at the same time, it's such a quick like snapshot of you're in the company for a couple months, or if you're lucky, some people get a year or two, but you're in the company for a little bit, and then after that, you're either back on staff or going to staff. And at the company level is where you do a lot of your learning as a young lieutenant in aviation. That's where you're surrounded by your warrant officers who are the technical and tactical experts in their aircraft. And you're surrounded by them learning about the aircraft, learning about the mission sets that you all do, just learning in general about aviation. And you still get that at staff level too, but at the company level is where it's really honed in. It's where you have your greatest chance of getting the most flight hours so you can increase your proficiency and make sure that you're the best that you can be in terms of flying. And then also, it's just a super enjoyable time. Most aviation companies, or flight companies at least, are pretty small. They're like 30 or 40 people, so it's a pretty tight knit company, and you get to know your people, and that affords you a lot of opportunities to have an impact on people's lives and just get to learn more about your job in general.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Does being an aviation officer transfer over to the civilian world, or does it not? Is it the same thing?
It definitely can. So, if you, I know for civilian aviation, one of the big things that they look for are people who have previous aviation experience because that helps lend some credibility to their applicants. So, I know there are a lot of aviation officers that end up transitioning to the civilian aviation world. And if you have a decent amount of flight hours, then that can definitely help when you're trying to get out and then go to the civilian aviation world, try to pick up a job flying an airplane, an airliner or something like that. And then also, just from the officer standpoint, I feel like most, if not every branch of officers get this, but just that general management skill, learning how to manage people, manage property, other things, just managing in general overall. You get that experience as well in aviation. So that could lend towards or lean towards a good job on the outside as well. Um, and then I've seen also other people, they'll transition from the Army to other military branches and try to fly for them as well. So if that's something that people are interested in, that's always an opportunity as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, and so I do know, just for the viewers, right? So, as an officer, we don't typically have contracts except for that first initial obligation, and everything else after that is typically just an ad. So, whether it be a PCS or school or whatever. So, what are your plans right now? I mean, you just like me should be getting to the bare end or at the end or actually over your initial obligation. Do you plan to stay in and do a couple more years? Do you want to do 20 years? Do you trying to like what are you want to go warrant? Like so what are your thoughts? What do you want to do?
So for aviation, it's a little bit different. We actually have an extended service obligation out of flight school. So
Mm.
I know for most people that go and through their commissioning source without incurring any other sorts of grad sales or ASOs or anything, is generally like a 3.5 year, 4 year contract kind of thing.
Yeah.
For us, or for what I went through, it was after you graduate flight school, you incur a 6 year duty obligation.
Six
That's what
after
it used
flight
to be.
school?
It's
Damn.
changed since then. So now instead of 6 years, it's 10 years.
What?
They did. It is a 10-year duty obligation after you graduate flight school. And the reasoning for that, it's the Army's way of trying to ensure that they don't hemorrhage aviators because a lot of, especially recently, a lot of captains, whenever they get to that point to where it's time for them to get out or stay in, whenever they have to make that decision, they end up submitting UQRs and things like that and getting out and going and doing other things. And the Army puts a lot of money into training people how to fly, and then they end up leaving. So it's the Army's way of trying to address that issue. Not saying it's the right way to address the issue, but it's the Army's way of trying to address the issue. So it ends up being, if you count flight school and then that ADSO or that duty obligation with that, you end up spending 11 and a half, 12 years committing right off the bat if you choose aviation.
Woo!
So it's a long time and a big commitment.
Damn. I mean, so I'm assuming the promotion rates up to major and colonel are pretty good then.
I would say decent. Definitely, at least to major, pretty decent because so many people are getting out.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot, but that's what, as far as I'm tracking, that's what it is for all the other branches too. 10-year duty commitment. So it's a lot. But if you know you want to do it, then I guess you're going to stick around anyway. So.
Ooh, and when you say all the other branches, you mean like the Navy and the Air Force, correct? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, pilots are doing 12. That is disgusting. 12
It's
years.
a long time.
Damn.
That's a big pill to swallow initially. Like if you're in whatever commissioning source and thinking about choosing aviation, like that's something you got to keep in your mind. Do I want to commit 10 to 12 years of my life to this, hoping that I like it? And if you like it, then great. If you don't, then you are stuck for a long time.
You are fucked. All right. Shit, you are fucked. Okay.
Yeah.
And I gotta ask you one more question before we get to the last question. I know if I was a young cadet, young OC looking for information on aviation, one of the biggest questions I would want to know is, do aviation officers are you the guys that pilot the drones?
No. So it does fall under the aviation branch, but aviation officers, in terms of like commissioned officers, are not the ones that pilot the drones.
Ah.
That usually falls, if I'm not mistaken, that's usually warrants that end up flying those drones, and they're not. It's not something that you choose out of flight school. It's a whole nother type of aviation thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's its own type of warrant officer.
It is. They're specifically, and there may be some enlisted too that do it. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they're specifically drone operators. They're not. They don't fall into that pilot category. It's not something that you have an option to choose when you're going through flight school. They're specifically drone operators. They apply specifically for that, and then specifically work in that field.
Thank you for the interview. This is our very last question on Thursday Thunder. If you were to go back in time and well, actually, let's not give you that one. Let's just say you were able to sit on a podium and talk to every single person in the United States that was interested in being an aviation officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
From toddlers to OCs to ROTC people to kids. What words of wisdom would you tell anybody that's looking to get into 15 Alpha?
If I was talking to everybody I would definitely say, do your research first. Make sure it's something that you want to do. It's obviously a fun job, like being able to get out there and fly and stuff like that. But if there's a long training pipeline, and now with that 10-year commitment after your training, make sure it's something that you want to do. If you've got a family, make sure your family's up for that commitment. If you do all your research and are very thorough and talk to people and get their advice, and it's something that you still want to do, go for it. If you're unsure, I don't know if I would recommend choosing that route if you were unsure about it. Wait until you're sure, wait until you get a better feeling about it. Or if you don't, then maybe kind of choose something else. But if you're sure about it, you want to go for it, 100% go for it. You'll have your ups and downs. It'll be fun. If you want to fly, definitely go the warrant route. But if you want to fly and then also get that management experience and that leadership experience as well, then that's what the commission route is for.
Okay. So on behalf of everybody that's watching this video and me, thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and bless us with this knowledge.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on here. Man, always a pleasure.
Man, thank you. It is my pleasure. And for anybody that's listening, normally this is the part where we ask our guests if they want to drop social media, but we are not doing social media anymore. So if you guys have any questions, You guys can send them to me, and I will think about sending them to Kevin. So, without further ado, as everybody knows, you guys can follow me on Snapchat at KLOP95 or Instagram at KIDTHNDR2. And like I always like to say at the end of all my videos, don't live the same year 75, 80, 85, 90 times and then try and call it a life, guys. My name is Dom. This is Kevin, and we're flying out of here, guys. Peace.